Blood trickled down Jamal Washington's chin as the entire cabin froze in stunned silence. The flight attendant, Bryce Reynolds, stood over him with fists still clenched, his breathing sharp, his eyes darting nervously around the passengers who were now staring in shock. And then, slowly but with unshakable authority, a silver-haired man rose from seat 14A. His suit was crisp, his posture commanding. He held up his federal judge credentials and said in a voice that carried across the cabin, "That boy's jaw is broken, and so is your career." The nightmare had begun hours earlier in Detroit. Jamal was only 15, traveling alone for the very first time. His mother, Kesha, had dropped him off at the airport, reminding him, "Be respectful. Follow instructions. Don't give anyone a reason to single you out. You know how it is." She had raised him alone since the death of his father and taught him the careful rules of survival as a young black teenager in America. Jamal was bright, ambitious, the captain of his debate team, already dreaming of becoming a lawyer one day. Boarding the plane felt like a step toward independence. From the moment he entered the cabin, though he sensed unease. The elderly white couple at his row subtly shifted away as he slid into his seat. He smiled politely, determined not to cause discomfort. As the flight attendant, Bryce, moved down the aisle, Jamal noticed the difference in tone. Warm smiles for white passengers, clipped indifference when he reached Jamal's row. He didn't even offer Jamal a drink. Sitting several rows ahead, Judge Marcus Hamilton observed everything with a practiced eye. For 30 years he had presided over civil rights cases. He knew the look of discrimination when he saw it. Quietly, he frowned and made a mental note. An hour later, when drink service came, Jamal politely asked for water. "I'll get back to you," Bryce said curtly, and never returned. Minutes stretched into half an hour. Jamal finally pressed the call button. Bryce arrived looking irritated. "Is this an emergency?" he asked loudly, drawing attention. Jamal, calm but embarrassed, explained. "I just didn't get any water." Bryce snapped. "Service is suspended due to turbulence." Yet the ride was smooth, the seatbelt sign off, other passengers moving freely. Judge Hamilton discreetly began recording on his phone. When Jamal later stood to use the restroom, Bryce deliberately bumped into him in the aisle, spilling drinks onto white passengers nearby. He rushed to apologize to them, then turned sharply. "Watch where you're going," he snapped at Jamal. Loud enough for all to hear, he declared, "This young man has been disruptive since boarding." Jamal froze, stunned by the false accusation. A few passengers gave him disapproving looks. Others looked uneasy. The narrative was being built, a troublemaking black teenager. The breaking point came when Jamal discovered his seatbelt was broken. He tried repeatedly, but it wouldn't latch. Nervously, he pressed the call button. Bryce returned, already irritated. "What now?" Jamal demonstrated the faulty buckle. Bryce raised his voice. Everyone else managed just fine. "Why are you the only one with problems?" He accused Jamal of being deliberately difficult. "You're endangering others by refusing to buckle. You need to move to the back where we can monitor you." Jamal's chest tightened. Moving to the back felt like punishment, like humiliation. "Could I just get an extender?" "I'd prefer to stay here," he asked softly. Bryce leaned close. "Are you refusing instructions? Interfering with a crew member is a federal offense." Jamal swallowed hard, fear tightening around him. "I'm not refusing, sir. I'm trying to follow the rules." But Bryce's tone grew louder, harsher, accusing him of being defiant. Passengers turned their heads. Then turbulence shook the plane. Drinks spilled onto Jamal's lap. He instinctively stood to avoid the mess. Bryce pounced on the moment. "Sit down immediately. He's aggressive. Help me restrain him." Two male passengers unbuckled, moving toward Jamal. Terror spread through Jamal's chest. He raised his hands high. "Please, I'm not doing anything wrong," he pleaded. The elderly woman beside him pressed her call button frantically. "This isn't right," she said, trembling with indignation. And then, in front of dozens of witnesses, Bryce snapped. His fist lashed out, connecting squarely with Jamal's jaw. The crack of bone rang through the cabin. Jamal collapsed, blood spilling into his mouth, eyes wide in shock and pain. Gasps and screams filled the air. Dozens of phones caught the assault on video. And it was then that Judge Hamilton rose. He introduced himself formally, credentials gleaming, voice resonant. "I am Judge Marcus Hamilton of the United States Court of Appeals. I witnessed your conduct. This boy is the victim of assault, and he requires immediate medical attention." The captain emerged, skeptical at first, but when Judge Hamilton and passengers showed their videos, his face darkened. Within minutes, he announced an emergency landing in Charlotte. When paramedics boarded, the diagnosis was clear: a fractured jaw. Police entered the cabin, but Hamilton immediately intervened. "That boy is a minor victim. The assailant is your crew member. Focus there." The authority in his words redirected the investigation. At the hospital, Jamal underwent surgery. His jaw was wired shut with titanium plates. His mother, Kesha, rushed in, horrified by what she learned. Airline executives followed quickly, eager to contain the damage. They offered $500,000 if she signed a confidentiality agreement. Kesha stared at the paper, tempted by the security it promised. But Judge Hamilton leaned close. "This isn't just about Jamal. It's about every child who looks like him. Don't let them bury the truth." With trembling hands, Kesha pushed the papers back. "We won't be silent." The lawsuit that followed became national news. Hashtag Justice for Jamal trended as passenger videos went viral. The airline's lawyers tried to paint Jamal as defiant, even digging into his school record for minor infractions. But discovery revealed the truth. Bryce had 17 prior complaints of discriminatory behavior, all dismissed. Even worse, internal memos showed extra scrutiny guidelines for young black men traveling alone. Depositions were brutal. Jamal, unable to speak, wrote his answers calmly on a whiteboard. When asked if he had defied instructions, he simply wrote, "If the seat belt had worked, none of this would have happened." His quiet composure shattered the defense's narrative. Elderly passengers from his row came forward with their own testimony and video, corroborating everything. The airline's position collapsed. Settlement offers rose, $1 million, then higher. But Kesha refused. "This is not about money anymore," she said firmly. After 2 years of mounting evidence, the airline capitulated. The final settlement was $22 million, plus something greater: a binding consent decree. The Washington Protocol was born: mandatory anti-bias training, independent oversight, and systemic reform across the airline. Other carriers soon adopted similar programs. Jamal used part of the settlement to establish the Washington Foundation for Justice, funding scholarships for black students pursuing civil rights law. Letters flooded in, families thanking him for standing firm, flight attendants of color describing their own struggles, young people inspired by his courage. He had become a reluctant but powerful symbol of change. 3 years later, Jamal adjusted his tie in the mirror of his Harvard dorm. At 18, he was beginning law school. The faint scar on his jaw remained, but his voice was clear and strong again. His phone buzzed. Judge Hamilton, now retired, called to wish him luck. "Remember," he said warmly, "your story is powerful, but it doesn't define you. You are Jamal Washington, future attorney, on your own merits." Later that semester, Jamal boarded a National Airways flight again, facing his fears. His pulse quickened as he stepped onto the plane. But this time, things were different. Every seat pocket held the Washington Protocol card. The crew treated every passenger with equal respect. After landing, the captain himself shook Jamal's hand. "You changed this industry. Thank you." What began with a broken jaw had become the catalyst for systemic reform. A teenager's humiliation became a national reckoning. A mother's refusal to be silenced became a symbol of resistance. A judge's decision to bear witness changed the trajectory of an entire industry. Jamal's story reminds us that injustice thrives in silence, but when someone chooses to speak, record, and stand firm, justice ripples far beyond one moment. One voice can change everything. If this story moved you, hit the like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up against injustice matters. This is